Hare Krishna. Hare Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Excuse me.
పిల్లని వాచి చూడు
Prabhuji, you are on mute, Prabhu.
Thank you. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. So, very good morning to you all. Hare Krishna. Welcome back on this. I don't know what the weather's like there, but it's lovely and bright Sunday morning here in Sri Mayapur Dham. The birds are singing. There's children playing outside, and it's still very early. It's good. So, on Friday morning, we covered the introduction, invocation, and mantra 1. So today, I'd like to cover mantras 2 and 3, if possible. Before we begin, though, let me just cover in summary some of the main points that we discussed on Friday. Just beginning with I just want to cover some of the key points. So the introduction stated that the Sri Isha Upanishad, of course, is part of the 108 Upanishads. And is part of the Shruti mantras, those mantras which are accepted as revealed absolute truth and which have never changed, even over the passage of time, of course. This was one of Srila Prabhupada's strongest characteristics as spiritual leader. He presented the scriptures as they are and in a way in which everyone could understand. We also discussed the fact that the Vedas are the most authoritative knowledge, with the Shruti mantras of the Sri Isha Upanishad being Shabda Praman, or evidence that is presented and received through the process of hearing from a Dhira, or a bona fide spiritual master who is in the line of disciplic succession. We then talked about, of course, a little bit briefly about the invocation, which presented us with the fact that the Lord is complete and perfect, Purnam, and that in order to realize that perfection, one may need to go through various stages of realization of the Lord's 3 main features, which are described, of course, then in the Brahma Samhita as Sat, Chid, and Ananda. Once we have realized that Krishna is the complete realization of any kind of transcendence, we can begin to comprehend his completeness and perfection by seeing all his potencies, energies, and emanations everywhere. And this is what the Sri Isha Upanishad is going to build up into after mantras 2 and 3. If one's realization is sincere, then the Isha Upanishad teaches us that Krishna makes all suitable arrangements and provides for all the facilities for his devotees to make progress on their spiritual journey. And we have a real life example, of course, in his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He did everything according to scriptural injunction. His faith was completely fixed and firm. And it wasn't just rules and regulations for him, it was more of a labor of love. And that's what made it so special. And you can see that, Krishna reciprocated with him. After so many years, he got to eventually do what he wanted to do. He wrote that poem, Dance, Make Me Dance. And Krishna made him dance. And wow, he made everybody else dance too. So it's really there. We ended, of course, by speaking about mantra 1, where the Sri Upanishad instructs us of the Lord's proprietorship over everything. And we discussed the Ishavasya principle, that everything is owned and controlled by the Lord. It's there in the word Ishavasya. And just like a loving father does, Krishna provides us individual souls with a quota. And we earn that quota during our various different lifetimes according to our qualification or karma. Ishopanishad therefore instructs us not to take more than what we are due, as doing so means we are taking what does not belong to us. That makes us a thief. Prabhupada puts it very strongly in the purport there. So today let's begin our discussion by reading mantras 2 and 3. In fact, let's read mantras 1, 2, and 3 side by side, because there is a story, a context, and a series of instructions that build up when we do this, rather than just reading them individually. This is a group of mantras which present a series of practices which are important for us to follow. So I've got a few more people joining, so let me just admit them to the room. And I'm going to make His Grace Ananta Shesh a co-host very briefly, because he's going to put you into pairs for me in the background, but not open up the pairs room. Ananta Shesh, are you in the room?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I'm gonna hand you over the co-hosting rights. If you can prepare pairs, obviously for those people who are already sitting together, as I can see on the screen, don't put them with other people, because that would just be a bit weird. So those who are on their own, if you can just put them into pairs, preferably Matajis with Matajis, Prabhujis with Prabhujis, so I don't get told off by the Mayapur Institute authorities. Yeah, you don't open up the rooms till much later. So Ananta Shesh, you now have some co-hosting rights.
You want to create breakout rooms, Roji?
Create pairs, yes, breakout pairs, that's it. And create them, but don't open them yet, because otherwise everybody will disappear and I'll be talking to myself for about 30 minutes. But this will save us some time later on, that's all. Thank you. So let's read these mantras 2 and 3 side by side. Let me share my screen actually. Where am I? Here. And at this point I have to go off video because strange reasons my computer doesn't work like other people's. Okay, can I have somebody read this, please?
Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside and his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way, for that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Mataji. So let's have the verse as well, the Sanskrit and the English. If somebody else could read this for me. Excuse me.
One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way. For that sort of a work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man.
Okay, I wanted the Sanskrit as well, but okay. Would you like to have a go at that, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Kurvan eveha karmani jijivisheha chamsaha evam tvayi nanyato tosti na karma lipyate nare.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Mataji. So I'd ask you to read the purports for mantras 2 and 3 in readiness for this session. From the purport to mantra 2 then, In one sentence, can anyone identify the main instruction of Sri Upanishad here? Hands raised. Yeah?
Law of karma.
Law of karma. Interesting. I guess it's there. It is there. But what's the wider instruction?
About the
responsibility
migration
of a human.
Oh, one at a time, one at a time. Let's go to Shruti Priya Radhika Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. One has to understand that Ishavasya principle and continue to work in that way.
Exactly that, yes. This mantra actually describes the benefits of living in Ishavasya consciousness. And it also describes how, if one does this, there is no harm actually in living for hundreds and hundreds of years. Let me stop my screen share for a minute, because that's not where I want to go at the moment. Just bear with me. Oops. I need a new computer. That's what I need. Yeah. So this mantra describes, as I just said, the benefit of living in the consciousness of Ishavasya. And that if we do this, then actually there is no reason why one cannot even aspire to live for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's interesting because Srila Prabhupada even begins his purport. Let me just go to that part of the purport there. He says, no one wants to die, and everyone wants to live for as long as he can drag on. This temperament is not only visible individually, but is also visible collectively in the community, society, and nation. Then he goes on to talk about how hard a struggle life is. And it is when you look at what's going on. I mean, we have to work so hard to make ends meet sometimes. We've got the coronavirus going on out there at the moment. We're in lockdown. Everything has become difficult. Even the dogs and cats are struggling, looking for food because we're not throwing out so much. So there is a struggle for survival, but we don't just give up. We want to continue to live. And we are actually, what is actually our nature as spirit souls?
Serving, Prabhuji.
What's that, Mataji?
Servitor attitude.
A servitor attitude is there. That is there, very definitely.
Krishna Dasai.
Yes, that's there. But what say in the context of wanting to live forever? What is something so special about the soul? Shruti Priya Radhika Mataji, yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, one wants to live eternally.
One wants to live eternally. Well, actually, yes, you're right. The spirit soul is eternal by nature. We've been here through millions and millions and millions of different lifetimes already. So our natural inclination is want to live forever and love forever. Problem is that we've identified ourselves with our material bodies. And so we've forgotten that. So there's actually no harm in wanting to live forever. Just that we have forgotten that this is a material body and actually we belong eternally in the spiritual world, but we just want to stay here. So then Prabhupada is saying basically no problem. Iso Upanishad is also saying no problem. In this mantra, one may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continues if he continuously goes on working in that way, i.e., in the Ishavasya consciousness. Because if one does that, then we are not going to get bound by the effects of our karma. In the same way, we have this natural inclination to live forever. We have a natural predisposition to work, to serve. Yes, to do something for somebody, to do something for our families, our friends, our relations, for ourselves even. And of course, for those of us who are, spiritually minded in whatever faith that we may follow, to serve the devotees of the Lord. So, excuse me, how does Srila Prabhupada then describe or explain the benefit of applying the Ishavasya principle in our Sorry, Anantashesh is sending me a message. I'll come back to you in a moment, Anantashesh. So how does Srila Prabhupada describe the benefits of working in the Ishavasya principle in the purport to this verse? What happens if we actually sincerely apply the Ishavasya principle into our lives? Mamata and Shiv, I don't know what your names are, so please forgive me. Prabhu and Mataji there, yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, is it that we'll be able to live in harmony?
Living in harmony, yes, yeah, we can, yeah, we become, we'll innately be, develop the ability to live in harmony. That's there, yeah, definitely. What else is there?
Yeah, and Srila Prabhupada says any actions that we do that should be Krishna-centric so that we don't bind ourselves into the sinful mode.
Bind ourselves into the sinful mode. Can you go one step further than that? You're absolutely right. The direction is perfect here.
Yeah, just follow to our spiritual master and follow to the authoritative scriptures and live with it.
You got, yes, that's very, very, very correct. You got even closer when you were talking about being bound up. What do we get bound up by?
Bound up by the material nature.
Bound up by the material. Come on.
Prabhuji, we are bound up by the karma, I think. We are bound by the karma and we wanted to be in the akarma state so that we are not bound. Yeah.
Yes, bound up by the karma, exactly. We get, Prabhupada explains that if we work according to Ishavasya, we can become freed from our karma. What else is there? If we become freed from our karma, what happens? What happens to the spirit soul?
Hare Krishna. Broad-minded and not triple-minded. By this, we come into the...
Prabhu, there's a horrible echo going on behind you. I can't hear what you're saying. Some feedback. That's better.
Hare Krishna?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, actually, we become broad-minded and not the triple-minded. That means we come under the control of Srimati Radharani, that is the internal potency.
Okay, that's very good. That's also very good. But how does that help us? Anyone? Let's go to Maulik Joshi, Prabhu. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, come out from the conditioned state, means our mentality will change from conditioned state and we will come to realize our natural constitutional position.
Yes, we become realized, spiritually realized. So we rise to the spiritual platform of life. And that then helps us, as somebody already mentioned, become wholly situated in devotional service to Krishna.
Yes,
and there's a further effect of that. Of all these things, when we become freed from our karma, we become spiritually elevated and we become situated in devotional service to Krishna, there's an effect that happens to the spirit soul when he's living in this material world. Anybody? There's a big effect that happens.
It frees one from the cycle of birth and death when they follow akarma.
It frees one from the cycle of birth and death. Yes, indeed it does. And of course, there's one more thing there, and that is that, if all these things happen, even if we are living then in the material world, it can become a liberating and fulfilling experience because Krishna is put firmly back at the center of one's life. Then we become happy. So then it doesn't matter if you want to live for hundreds and hundreds of years because all we want to do is serve. Serve with love and serve completely wholeheartedly. So, for those who want to do that, Ishopanishad says it is possible to do that. If you've become too attached to this material body, fine. Just change the way you think, change the way you behave. And Krishna says, I will make it all possible, whatever you desire. But of course, that means that we have to work because one can't live here and not work. If we live according to the Ishavasya consciousness, does that mean we have to give up our work and become totally renounced? If we put Krishna back in the center of everything, does that mean we have to give up everything?
No, we should accept only those things which are meant for us.
Yeah.
We should not expect from them.
Yes. Yeah. You know, there's no need to actually become completely renounced, put on orange robes and, you know, forget about everything, go begging from door to door. We don't need to do that. On the contrary, it means actually dovetailing all our work and all our activities and all our endeavors into Krishna's service. And Prabhupada explains to us that work is actually inevitable for all living beings. We have a natural tendency to serve. We have a natural tendency to work. When we're working, we're not just working for money. We are working to serve others around us. We have family, we have friends, you know, we have relations. You know, even if we are on our own, there is something there that we are always giving to somebody, however small it may be. So this natural tendency for work is always there. We have to work. We have to put food in the table. We have to maintain our homes. We have to send our children to school. We have to look after our parents. Work forms the very basis of our most basic of necessities, even if one actually, even if one decides to take the renounced order of life, and of course that privilege is set aside for a very, very, very few special people. It's not an easy thing to do. And even if one gets to that stage of life, still one has to work. One has to go out and give lectures. One has to administer to your congregation, to your disciples, or, you know, to the people that we teach, to people that we preach, the people that we distribute books to, the people that we distribute food to. When we're, you know, if we're in the renounced order and we're working in the temple, we're still working. So everyone has to work. Even Krishna has to work, he says in the Bhagavad Gita. He says he's always doing something. And more specifically, he gives Arjun a very, very elaborate explanation, of course, in chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, in Karma Yoga, as to why work is so important and in what spirit we must do our work. He also explains that, you know, we have this natural inclination towards specific types of work according to our karma. So Krishna's words in chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, of course, confirm the instructions of Mantra 2 of the Sri Upanishad. And in his purport to Mantra 2, Srila Prabhupada describes 3 types of work, which are, of course, anyone?
Karma, akarma, and vikarma.
Yeah, karma, akarma, and vikarma. So what is karma?
Actions that are mentioned in the revealed scriptures are called karma. And actions that free one from the cycle is akarma.
Okay, all right. So actions mentioned in the revealed scriptures are karma. Is it actions mentioned in the scriptures is karma, or is it actions performed according to the directions of the scriptures give one karmic reactions or good karmic reactions? Which is it?
Actions performed.
Actions performed, yeah. So it's important to understand this because it's very precise, this definition. And then vikarma, what is vikarma?
The action which are not performed as per the regulative misused will take to the lower species.
Say that again, Prabhu.
The actions which are not performed as per the regulatives and misused will take to the lower species.
Yes.
It not as per the scriptures.
Yes, so activities for sense gratification, which are contrary to the directions of the scriptures, these incur bad karma, and then they lead one to the lower species of life forms, of course. And then we have akarma. What is akarma? And what is this mantra specifically describing?
It is the one which free from the actions of from the cycle of birth and death. which we can be freed from that.
Yes, exactly.
And it should be God-centered actually. Whatever work we should do be doing according to the God. We're thinking that it is His wish.
Exactly. Akarmic activities are therefore those activities which we perform in the spirit of Ishavasya, in Ishavasya consciousness. And these kind of actions, they don't incur any karma, and then they lead one towards liberation. So they are activities performed in a mood of service to the Lord. These are the actions which recognize the proprietorship of the Lord, recognize Him as the owner and controller and provider of everything. So then what is karma bandhana? There's another term there.
Transmigration of the soul.
Transmigration of the soul. I guess it's part of it. Anyone else got a thought on that?
It binds us
karma.
to birth and death cycle.
Okay.
Binding.
Yeah. Karma bandhana is when we become bound up by the reactions of our work. And so this purport is actually explaining that if we act according to our particular prescribed duties and become properly engaged in the work that we have been allocated to do and which, our natural propensity is to do, but without becoming bound up by the reactions of that work, i.e. bound up by the karma bandhana, then there can be a problem. And Srila Prabhupada tells us a little bit more about this, of course, in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm just going to respond to a message from, actually, Anantashesh, if you look to the bottom of your screen, there should be something called breakout rooms. And from there, you should be able to assign some...
No, bro, it is not enabled there.
Oh.
No, this option is not enabled here.
No, it will be on his. Because I've made him co-host, so he should be able to do that.
Yeah, normally it shows in the bottom. Normally that option appears in the bottom.
Oh,
it's not visible.
It's not visible. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is not enabled, I think.
All right. Okay, maybe I'll have to do this manually then. I was hoping not to because it will save us some time. So I'll find another way for the next lesson to do this in a much better way, a much more efficient way. Okay. All right, so I want to share another slide with you because I want us to read what Srila Prabhupada says about karma bandhana. If you just bear with me for 1 second. Can I have somebody read this, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, yes, Mataji.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, on Karma Bandhana. Karma Bandhana means the bonds of fruitive activity. As long as one's mind is absorbed in fruitive activities, he has to manufacture plans for happiness. Mukti or liberation means becoming free from the results of fruitive activities. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.10.6, Mukti Hitvanyatha Rupam. Mukti means giving up all other activities and being situated in one's constitutional position, Swarupena Vyavasthithi. In this conditioned state, we're entangled by one fruitive activity after another. Karma bandhana means the bonds of fruitive activity. As long as one's mind is absorbed in fruitive activities, he has to manufacture plans for happiness. The Bhakti Yoga process is different. For Bhakti Yoga means acting according to the order of the Supreme Authority. When we act under the direction of Supreme Authority, we do not become entangled by fruitive results. For instance, Arjuna fought because the Supreme Personality of Godhead wanted him to. Therefore, he was not responsible for the outcome of the fighting. As far as devotional service is concerned, even hearing and chanting is as good as acting with our body, mind, and senses. Actually, hearing and chanting are also activities of the senses. When the senses are utilized for one's own sense gratification, they entangle one in karma, but when they are used for the satisfaction of the Lord, they establish one in bhakti. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Yes. So that was from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 24, verse 78, Srila Prabhupada's purport on chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. So it's important, therefore, to work on the proper platform with proper consciousness, utilizing and dovetailing everything in Krishna's service. And in his purport to Mantra 2 of the Sri Upanishad, Srila Prabhupada also talks about good deeds, such as philanthropism and altruism. What is philanthropism and what is altruism?
One is a social work.
Yeah, social work is there. Anyone else?
To build hospitals and charitable ashrams and all this old age homes, is that all under philanthropist?
Yeah, these are all kinds of philanthropic and altruistic activities. But what do the terms mean?
They're always looking for the well-being of others.
Yeah.
Is that what we're...
It could mean that. It depends very much on the consciousness of the philanthropist or the altruist.
They're disinterested and they're selfless and they're concerned about the well-beings of others.
Yeah. So somebody's got Google on the go there, huh? So it's very interesting. Yes, altruism means basically disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others. And there is a distinction between this and philanthropism. A philanthropist is a person who seeks to promote, for example, the welfare of others, for example, through generous donation of money to good causes. Now, one may ask, well, what is actually wrong with this? What is actually wrong with being a philanthropist or an altruist?
Because it is not associated with the
It is not associated with?
The Supreme Lord. It is actually selfish.
It is
self-centered.
Okay, is it self-centered though? I say, for example, I have lots and lots and lots of money, which believe me, I don't. But if I did have lots and lots of money, and I'm seeing lots of poor people in India at the moment, and I am seeing a lot more poverty in India at the moment because of this coronavirus. And I'm thinking, you know what, let me give freely to everybody.
Any activity, whether pious or impious, binds us. So,
any activity?
Is pious or impious binds us. Binds us is binding.
Okay, so but what if I am a very Krishna conscious person and I'm giving lots and lots of donations everywhere and, you know, feeding people's bellies and people are very happy and every time they see me, they are, you know, coming up to thank me and I'm feeling very good about what I'm doing. What's wrong with that?
Mode of passion?
Say that again, Dipal Prabhu?
Is it that all in the mode of passion? That is the reason it's...
It could be, yeah, it could very well be.
Prabhu,
You know, I could be doing
Prabhu, because of temporary happiness.
Temporary happiness. That I'm temporary happy? Or that
No,
the person...
like the people we are giving the money to will be temporarily happy.
Temporarily happy. But is there anything wrong then, Mataji?
Yeah, one is actually...
One second, Ravindra Prabhu. Let me just respond to that. Is there anything wrong with somebody being temporarily happy because I've just filled their belly? What is wrong with that?
No, but if we can, we should give them permanent happiness.
If I can, I should give them permanent happiness. Somebody's already on their way to Krishna consciousness, I think. On the way to Krishna, next life. It's a very fair point, actually. What you just said is very nice. Ravindra Prabhu, yes, let me come back to you.
One is trying to satisfy his senses. That is not on the spiritual thing. He's trying to satisfy his own senses or sense gratification.
Yeah, so Prabhupada describes this as extended form of sense gratification. You know, because I'm getting a lot of recognition by everybody for my good works. Okay? Now let me share with you some extended sense gratification which is real. I have a daughter, an adopted daughter. She's now a doctor and she works from Bangalore airport as a doctor who goes out on a big jumbo jet and they go and visit different parts of the world. Now, if she was here right now, she'd be chopping my head off and going very mad at me because I'm not supposed to tell you any of this. But being the proud father, I just can't help myself. She never talks about her work. She goes to places where there are landmines, like the borders of Afghanistan, Pakistan, places in Iraq and Iran. And children have been playing nearby where these landmines are, and many have had their limbs blown off or half their faces blown off. Some gruesome things I've seen on the video footage. It's really, really very sad. Or little old ladies have been trying to, work the fields, and they've come across a landmine and accidentally applied the wrong kind of pressure with their hand and lost half their body. Some people have even passed away. So she goes out to these places without a salary and fixes these people where she can. That's her job. That's her life's work, her life's passion. And she doesn't like talking about what she does. She doesn't seek any kind of personal recognition. And even when I talk about it and actually say how proud I am of her, she says, Dad, it's not something to be proud of. The human race shouldn't be behaving like this. And quite often I want to cry. In fact, lump is coming to my throat now. But I'm talking about it because I want to tell the world. Because I'm proud. This is my extended sense gratification going on here. You understand? But her altruistic effort in not wanting to be recognized is something else. Now, what is wrong with that kind of work? Let me tell you something else. She doesn't believe in God. She doesn't believe in Krishna. She doesn't believe in anything like that. She doesn't believe in a higher power. So what is wrong with her altruistic work? And again, I feel very bad even saying this, but what is wrong with it? And me and her often debate this thing, but what do you think is wrong with that work? Or is there anything wrong with that work? Yes, Dipal Prabhu, go on.
It's nowhere connected to the Lord Krishna. Nowhere Krishna is there. So
nowhere Krishna is there. Prabhupada is clear that if Krishna is not in the center, if God is not in the center, it's not that there's anything wrong with this kind of work, but it doesn't bring the full kind of benefit. It doesn't liberate one from the cycle of birth and death. And that's what Prabhupada is trying to drive at. He's not saying, don't go out and help people. He's not saying, don't go out and save lives. He's saying, just if you can, please, just put Krishna back in the center of your lives. He's not saying that if you don't believe in Krishna or don't believe in God, don't do anything good. Because actually by doing something good, you are doing something for Krishna, even if you don't realize it. But the problem with that kind of work is one is still bound up. One is still experiencing the effects of one's karma. And we have to keep coming back through this cycle of birth and death until we realize our constitutional position to the Lord is Jiva Asvarupahaya Nitya Krishna Das. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. So, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to think about this particular subject just for about maybe 10 more minutes. And I was going to put you into pairs, but Anantashesh isn't able to do that. So let's try and do it in another way, because to do this, I would need a little time to put you into pairs and then give you some time to talk. And then before we finish, it'll be 9 o'clock. So let's try and do this in a slightly different way. I'm going to put this thing on the screen here so that we can see what I wanted to do. It's a preaching application exercise. And it's something that I often have a debate about with my daughter, because it's important. Of course, to her, she doesn't believe in Krishna, she doesn't believe in God, because her experience is her experience in life has been a very, very difficult one. As I say, I adopted her many years ago. She's an orphan. So the exercise is this preaching exercise. Maybe you can, those of you who are in pairs can think about it. I'll give you all some time to think about it, and then maybe I'll come to 3 or 4 people and we can discuss this. So set the scene. We're at the Sunday feast lecture at the temple, and the subject that the speaker is speaking about is this very thing about isms that Prabhupada describes in his purport. And a new visitor who comes to the temple, who just happens to be a philanthropist or an altruist, hears this lecture. It's his first visit to the temple, and he asks this question: what is the problem then with my altruistic or philanthropic work? I don't understand. And you need to demonstrate to him through question 2, how can the knowledge and application of Ishavasya principle, or even the knowledge in the Sri Ishopanishad, really help society? How can we talk about this? Now, I gave you some clues with my own personal story. So see if you can think about how you might answer a question like this, you know, to somebody who's new to the temple, or even somebody, you know, who isn't new to the temple, who doesn't get it. You know, what's wrong with helping people? What does the Sri Ishopanishad tell us, how, you know, that's important? Is that okay? Okay, so I'm going to give you, say, 5 minutes to think about it, and then I'll come back to you, and then we'll go around. Those of you who are in pairs, if you feel inspired, you may maybe put together a short skit. And then say by 8:10, I'd like to move on to mantra 3 so that we can finish by 9. So I'll give you, say, 5 minutes or 7 minutes from now to think about this question. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, all right. I don't know what happened there. I must have hit the mute key by accident. Yeah, so that verse is all very much full of doom and gloom. No? The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the world of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. I've got a chill going up the back of my spine right now listening to those words. So mantra 1 describes the Ishavasya consciousness living in harmony with Krishna. And mantra 2 describes the benefits of living in harmony with Krishna and working on the platform of Ishavasya. And this mantra 3 rounds up these primary set of instructions with a warning of what can happen if we ignore this advice. In his purport to this third mantra, Srila Prabhupada, he opens his purport by once again reminding us of the heavy responsibilities which come as a result of one's attaining the human form of life. And throughout the purport, there's emphasis, of course, on how one has to develop spiritual discipline. This is important, this word. In order to properly take care of those responsibilities that come with having this human form of life. Time and again, we hear through many of Srila Prabhupada's purports, this human form of life is a golden opportunity for the spirit soul, for us individual jivas, to awaken to our true consciousness. He explains that animals have a struggle for survival. It's a survival for the fittest, a survival for food, for shelter and maintenance. Okay, some human beings also have that, you know, have problems as well. We all go through issues, but certainly in the animal kingdom, we see it's a lot harder. So we have been blessed and gifted with many talents and abilities, not least the ability, of course, to inquire and to ascertain the truth about our spiritual existence. We have the freedom to exercise choices over the way we use those many gifts, those many talents, abilities, and the knowledge that has been afforded to us. We have the choice to develop spiritual discipline or not. And the consequences of those choices can put us into different categories of people. They're described in Mantra 3 here, those being godly and those being demonic. And Srila Prabhupada explains that those types of people, he explains who these types of people, demonic and godly, are, what their characteristics are, and where they ultimately go. And this mantra reflects upon the Atmahana, or killer of the soul, and the warning of what happens if we choose to go down that road. Interesting choice of words, killer of the soul. Wouldn't you say? We learn that the soul doesn't die, can't be burned by fire, can't be moistened by water, cannot be withered by the wind. What do we mean by when we say killer of the soul? How can you kill the soul?
A human being does not fully utilize his life for self-realization. He must be considered killer of the soul.
Yeah, if you don't utilize your life fully, then you kill the soul. But do you actually kill the soul? Soul doesn't die, it's eternal.
Putting yourself into the lowest species of life.
Putting yourself into the lowest species of life. Yeah, you dampen the soul's, you know, natural affinity to want to serve the Lord. And you end up falling down into the very lowest of the low species of life, and you dampen this zest for spiritual knowledge. This quest to, you know, to go back home to Godhead. One loses that desire because one forgets in the next species of life, you know, actually what our goal is. So let's talk a little bit. I want to hear today from Srila Prabhupada himself in the last few minutes of this class. So let's quickly talk about these godly type of people. Sorry, I've got two screens here. Let's talk about what the godly type of, who the godly type of people are. What does Srila Prabhupada say about godly people? Like, who are they? What are they actually, first, what are they called? What do we call godly people? Hands up.
Suras.
Suras. Suras, yes. And what is the aim of a sura?
To reach heavenly planets.
To reach the heavenly planets, to touch the lotus feet of the Lord. This, of course, is described in the Rig Veda. And who are they? I mean, you know, what are they aware of? There's one key word that we used a few times.
Demigods.
Are they demigods? Are they demigods? Godly people? Are they just demigods?
Are they dependent on Krishna?
Dependent on Krishna. That's good. Anything else?
Those who are cognizant of their responsibilities and work in the spirit, in that spirit.
Okay, you're saying that they recognize their responsibility. Responsibility of what?
Yeah, a distinction between a human life and an animal life.
Human life and an animal life. Yeah, that's something they are recognizing. They understand the responsibility, but they work in what spirit? You said they work in that spirit. What kind of spirit is it that you're talking about?
They are eternal servants of the Lord.
Eternal servants of the Lord. Yes, Jivara Swarupahaya Nitya Krishna Das. They are that. What else is there? You mentioned something about responsibility, Mataji.
They follow the rules and regulations as prescribed in the Vedas.
They follow the rules and regulations as prescribed in the Vedas. Many people follow the rules and regulations described in the Vedas, but does that make them godly?
They consider Supreme Lord to be Supreme Controller.
They consider the Supreme Lord to be the Supreme Controller. Of course, all these things that you're coming out with are actually correct, all of them. You know, and if you put them all into a box, you could say godly people have recognized their responsibility of using this human form of life, understanding that this human form of life is a rare opportunity to understand the self and to go back home to Godhead, and that they have a desire to serve at the feet of the Lord. But one important thing is that they've developed spiritual discipline. So they recognize that one must work in the spirit of Ishavasya. They recognize their social responsibility, they recognize their moral responsibilities, and they recognize their spiritual responsibilities. And like a jigsaw puzzle, they can put all these things together and work in that spirit. And that's the important thing about suras, or godly people. They recognize that if they do this, they can actually go one step further and solve this question in their minds about who am I? Once they recognize that, they know they've assured this place back home in God, back home to Godhead. And if they don't want to go back home to Godhead, Krishna makes everything comfortable for them down here. Or maybe it's not even their time to go back to Godhead yet, so Krishna still makes it good for them down here. Complete facility is provided. And then we have the other type of people who are the demonic people. And we call them, of course,
Suras.
Yes. Tell me a little bit about the suras. Asuras, sorry.
Denying to aiming at the lotus feet of the Lord.
They what?
Denying to aiming the lotus feet of the Lord.
Okay, yes, the opposites.
Not surrendering.
Okay, what kind of people do we often, Prabhupada talks about this in the purport. He mentions certain kind of characteristics of these kind of people.
Those who are neglectful of their responsibilities or who have no information of them are called asuras.
Yeah, good, very good. Neglectful of their responsibilities.
Do materialistic people.
They are more into sense gratification.
More into sense gratification, yeah. So they're
more into material prosperity.
Yeah, all these things.
And
keep going.
This is one's mentality.
One at a time. Mataji, you were speaking then. I don't know which one.
This is just one's mentality that we are not serving for the ultimate purpose. It's just one of us, Prabhu.
Yeah, very good, very good.
He also talks about the, like Bhagavad Gita is Icharaham Bhogi Siddhavan Palam Sukhi, like that. So that type of mentalities.
Yeah, that's also there. There's something also very important about the asuras.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, they are envious of
They are envious of the Lord.
They are envious of the Lord. This is really, really important. Yeah.
The devoid of self-realization as well.
Devoid of self-realization, also very important. Yeah. These two really big points, actually, being envious of the Lord. And, you know, it's interesting. You know, sometimes when I'm thinking about it, you know, that I think to a degree, I think many of us, well, I certainly have some, if you like, Asuric qualities that I catch myself out on a lot of the time. You know, I have feelings of envy towards other devotees sometimes. Admittedly, you know, somebody is singing in the temple. I wanted to sing in the temple. Why did he get to sing in the temple? He sang so beautifully. Why can't I sing that beautifully? These things are there. And when I catch myself out thinking like this in the temple, I'm thinking, oh, this is not a very good quality. This is not very Krishna conscious. And this is against everything that Srila Prabhupada is preaching. But I can't help it because I'm too attached to my material conditioning. And it's there, whether I like it or not. I have these, you know, anarthas, I guess is what we call them. I'd go maybe one step further and maybe call them, even for myself at least, slightly asuric qualities, which are very, very difficult to break out of. So on a practical level, you know, we're not just talking about technical terms. These are things that, you know, through the natural progression of being conditioned in a material body and in a material environment, things that we have to learn to deal with and get out of. And it's very, very difficult. And some people find it more difficult than others. When we talk about demonic people, we're not talking about people with big teeth and claws and, you know, fire breathing, obviously. You know, we're talking about actual, real, everyday qualities that we see in people, even see in ourselves from time to time. And that's what the scriptures are there to teach us. There's another thing that Prabhupada describes demonic people as, and he describes them as the Atmanahana, or killers of the soul. Because they lose their ability to, or dampen their spiritual nature, and therefore their ability to inquire positively about themselves, about the Lord, and about the destination. That even if, you know, one is given all the facilities in a human form of life, you know, we've heard of very, very rich and famous people who have got everything they could possibly want on this material planet. But still they are up to no good. And there is no God consciousness there. Obviously we don't name names and things like that, but, you know, it's there. We know it's there. On the other hand, there are people who have been gifted with everything and who recognize the supreme personality of Godhead. And they're happy, and that wealth doesn't mean so much to them. So there are, of course, then some practical reactions, I guess you could call them, that apply to each of these different types of people. The demonic achieve success. They might actually not achieve that much success, to be honest. I think Prabhupada mentions that in the purport somewhere. But they may become wealthy, they may become aristocratic, but they just may be good people. And then he mentions successful type of people who obviously get a place back in the kingdom of heaven. And then he talks about the demonic people who are always in problem of one sort or another. So we get a good idea then really of what's going on in this mantra. The instructions of mantra 3 as given in this Sri Ishopanishad, present us with a conclusion as to what one is and where one goes if one does not live by the principle of and in the consciousness of Ishavasya, the Atmahana, or the killer of the soul. And let's hear actually what Prabhupada has to say on this. I've got a slide here somewhere, which I'm just going to find. Ooh. Just bear with me. Yeah, somebody can read this for me, please.
The modern civilization is like that. It is a killing civilization. Atmaha.
Oh, your voice has gone. You've disappeared.
All these people are killing themselves because they do not know what life is, simply living like an animal. An animal does not know what life is, but is simply under the laws of nature. But when you get this human form of life, there is responsibility. Here is a chance for you to become Krishna conscious and solve all the problems of life. If not, you go into the cycle of birth and death again through 8,400,000 species. It will take many, many millions of years again to come back to the human form. Just like we'll see the sunshine again in the morning after 12 hours, 24 hours. Everything is a process. So if you lose this opportunity of elevating yourself, then again you come through the process. Nature's law is very strong. Devi Hiesha Gunamai. The sooner you surrender to Krishna, Mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. Such a person is able to overcome this process of material nature.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. That was from a lecture on the invocation to the Ishopanishad given in Los Angeles in 1970, but it makes a very strong point in connection with the instructions of Mantra 3. So I've got something I'd like you to consider before we actually hear from Srila Prabhupada. And he makes a statement that the dog is running on 4 legs and you are running on 4 wheels. What is the difference? Have a think about this in relation to the question below, why the human form of life is distinct from animal life and what is its purpose? Seems obvious, but let's just have a little think. Take a couple of minutes and I'll come back to you. Yeah, I've got somebody with their hand raised. Krishna Gopa Kumara.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, aspect of animalistic life role play to analyze the animal life is better than the human life form. Bottom line is that human life we wasted living like animals. Examples were presented. The Brahmaji granted a human life of form 20 years span and then granted animals lifespan for 20 years each, which is 80 years. So totally 100 years of lifespan as mentioned in Isha Mantra 2. Animals are under nasty and unpleasant condition, but they cannot realize. But why humans also cannot realize? The special facilities are provided to human life is to judge and clarify within ourselves with our intelligence. Is Supreme Lord. We are belong from the Supreme Lord, so we need to consider in that way. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Let's go to Murali Vadana Prabhu. We haven't been to you yet today. Hare Krishna, yes.
Hare Krishna, Babuji, this, now there is a famous saying in the Ahara Nidra Bhaya Maitunasya that animals and human beings both are common. But at present, what's happening is human beings also exactly focus on only these 4 items: Ahara Nidra Bhaya Maituna. So as a result, they totally lost the principle of Ishavasya principle, and also they're more focused on how to enjoy their senses on basis of these things. And also, you should understand this, there is something called dharma that makes the difference between human beings and animals. So you have to follow more of Kali Yuga dharma given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and get rid of the human form of the life.
Nice, thank you. Let's go to Tanuja Mataji next.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Humans have been given intelligence where they can distinguish their about right and wrong. They can also make choices, and the main thing is they can inquire about who am I, and it's only a form of life where they can make progress towards the spiritual world. So we shouldn't miss life.
Yeah, this is good. And then let's go to Shiv Prabhu and Mamta Mataji there.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Prabhuji, where we have this higher state of consciousness, when we don't use our higher state of consciousness and get into the bodies of animals, like how we have passed through 84 species, and this will only make us lower in consciousness, where we are abusing our existing bodies, and we are not utilizing our higher consciousness, and we are just running on 4 wheels.
Yeah.
For our food, the basic necessity.
Good, thank you very much. And let's then go to Saki Madhuri Mataji and then Dinu Damodaran Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, we are awarded higher responsibility so that we can go for self-realization. And for animals, if they do right, whatever it is, they are not going to incur any kind of sins, Prabhuji. For us, we need to do our prescribed duties. Based on that, we will be awarded our, we will be having our karmas for our next birth, Prabhu.
Good, good. And then let's go to Dina Damodaran Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. In a normal evolutionary process, human beings are very rare species. And then human beings have got a very higher responsibility than any other animalistic life. So human beings are compared to be a solid boat designed for crossing the ocean of nescience. So human beings are more responsible than any other animalistic life.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's what I'm getting from all of this is that we have, there's an expectation for human beings to perform duties of a higher nature than that of the animal kingdom. We have a very, very distinct and rare opportunity in this human form of life. And our intelligence, the intelligence that we've been blessed with is also of a higher nature. We have good facilities, we have comfortable lives. You know, everything is there by the law of nature, but generally speaking, we don't have to, you know, swill around like the hog and the dog in the streets. they also have necessities. And those necessities are also important to them, just as they are to us. And Prabhupada explains that the economic problems of animals are solved only under nasty and unpleasant conditions. That the purpose of a better facility to the human being is that we are not only expected to engage in eating, mating, sleeping, defending, but we have a higher purpose of realization of Godhead. And if we remain engaged only in the activities that also the animal kingdom engage in, or only engage in, then we become no more than animals ourselves. And that is how we become considered Atmahana, or killer of the soul. So mantra 3, therefore, it comes with a warning. It comes with a warning, a stark warning, that those who neglect these activities of the soul will enter into the worlds full of darkness and ignorance. And the human body, which is attained after many lifetimes in such lower worlds and species of life, carries the responsibility of attaining self-realization by engaging in the service of the Lord. If we neglect these human responsibilities of spiritual life, we become known as the killer of the soul, and again enter into the lower births and perpetually suffer in temporary material worlds. And there's a conclusion to this series of these first 3 mantras, which present us with some practical advice on how to live, and that this is to live, of course, in harmony with Krishna, to live in harmony with his creation. And that conclusion is there for us all to see, of course, in the life of our founder Acharya, in one who actually exercised Ishavasya consciousness, or lived in Ishavasya consciousness throughout all his life, and achieved that self-realization. Self-realization not only insofar as he was able to go back to the spiritual world, but also down here, to understand that if one fully lives in harmony with Krishna and his creation, and lives in Ishavasya consciousness, Krishna will provide complete facility to finish his or her work here. And Srila Prabhupada speaks about this in a couple of times. He mentions the one who takes to self-realization is provided for materially, even if he does not achieve the highest success. Let me just, I want to share something with you here. I hope you can all see this.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padam Kamalam. So everyone, because of that unlimited desire, one after another, this desire, when this desire fulfilled, another desire, another desire, another desire. In this way, you are simply creating problems. And when these desires are not fulfilled, then we become frustrated, confused. The frustration is there. One kind of frustration, just like in your country, the hippies, that is also frustration. Another kind of frustration is just like in our country, that is very old frustration, to become sannyasi. So to become sannyasi, Brahma Sattva Jagan Mithya, this world is false. How it is false? He could not utilize it properly, therefore it is false. It is not false. Vaishnava philosophy is, this world is not false. It is fact. But false when we think that I am the enjoyer of this world. That is false. If we accept it, that it is Krishna's and it should be utilized for Krishna's service, then it is not false. We have given it this example that these flowers, they are in the florist shop, there are so many flowers. The people are purchasing, we are purchasing, others are purchasing. They are purchasing for sense gratification. And we are purchasing for Krishna. The flower is the same. So one may ask that you are offering Krishna, Krishna is the Supreme Spirit, how you are offering material things, this flower. But they do not know that actually there is nothing as material. When we forget Krishna, that is material. That is material. This flower is meant for Krishna, this is spiritual. And when we take it, this flower, for my sensing, this is material. This is avidya. Avidya means ignorance. Nothing belongs to me. Isavasamidam sarvam. Everything belongs to Krishna. Therefore our movement is for awakening this Krishna consciousness. We should know that everything belongs to Krishna. Krishna is fact. The world is fact. This world is created by Krishna, therefore it is also fact. So everything is fact when it is done in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise it is Maya, Vidya. So by avidya, by ignorance, we want to enjoy sense gratification. And we create problems. We create so many artificial work, ugra karma. Although we are in avidya, by the grace of Krishna, everything is very simplified. Just like anywhere, any part of the world, there is food. Everything is there, complete. Purnamina. Purnamina. Just like somebody is living in the Greenland, Alaska, that the atmosphere is not very favorable to our consideration, but they are living, the inhabitants there. There is some arrangement. Similarly, if you study minutely, everywhere, just like there are millions and millions of fishes in the water. If you are put on a boat and you have to live for say 1 month, then you will die. You have no food for you. But there, within the water, there are millions and millions of fishes. They have got enough food. Enough. Not a single fish will die for want of food. But if you are put into the water, you will die. So similarly, by God's creation, there are 8,400,000 species of form of life. So God has given everyone food. Just like even if you are in the prison house, the government provides your food. Similarly, although this material world is to be considered as prison house for the living entity, still there is no scarcity of anything.
Remarkable man. Such a beautiful way of summarizing such important instructions given in our scriptures that we can relate to in such everyday terms. I mean, I still, my hair is standing on end, just, anyway. I just thought that those words summarize very, very beautifully what's being discussed in these first 3 mantras of the Ishopanishad. And also actually what is coming in the Ishopanishad. He mentions the word vidya and avidya. And you'll find these words in mantras 6, 7, and 8, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere near there. They might be a little bit later on. But I want you to think about those words as well for when we come. This is a little bit of research. What do these terms mean? Because there's some confusion sometimes around what these terms actually mean. So maybe if you can have a think about that for a later session, we can discuss that. I have one question, a very interesting question I came across whilst thinking about the material for presenting this series on the Isha Upanishad. And it made me laugh when I read it, but it's a really, really good question. If everything belongs to Krishna, can I take your laundry soap without asking? Some of you may have seen this before somewhere. I'll tell you why it made me laugh. I was staying in the Brahmachari ashram at Bhaktivedanta Manor 3 years ago. And one young Brahmachari, I'd just woken up in the morning and, you know, I went for my shower gel and it wasn't there in my locker. And I started to get really irritable. Somebody's taken my shower gel. And then as I'm walking down towards the bathroom in a very bad mood, I saw this boy come out of the bathroom and he's holding my shower gel. He said, "Oh, Prabhu, I borrowed your shower gel." I said, "Oh, did you now?" I said, "You didn't ask me." And he said, "Everything belongs to Krishna." And I kind of thought about it and I thought, yeah, okay, everything does belong to Krishna. You're right. Yeah. All right. I let it go. What do you think? If everything belongs to Krishna, can you take my laundry soap without asking me?
Everything
Yes.
belongs, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Everything belongs to Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna, but at the same time, everybody has got his quota. So we have to use that quota accordingly.
Exactly. It's my quota. It's my shower gel. Krishna gave it to me to use. It's not, I mean, it's you know, it's a small example. It's a funny question, but it's not to make light of a very serious subject, you know, that we actually all have been given our quota. And, you know, it's not right just to take, one should ask. So I just thought that was an interesting question to ask because it demonstrates that topic of quota and how important it is that we have all been allotted with something, you know, even if it's something as small as laundry soap or shower gel. So any questions on today's session? Or on this first 3 mantras of the Isha Upanishad? Yes, Murali Vadana Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in India, one lady called, I mean, you may be knowing, her name is Mother Teresa. She came here in India and she went to the Kolkata and did all the slum dwellers. She taken care of them nicely. At the same time, she preached the Christianity and she converted so many people into Christianity. Can you call it as a basis of Isha? Isha was the principle?
Can you put that into Ishavasya principle? It's an interesting question. I know a lot about Mother Teresa because I used to be a Catholic priest or a Catholic monk, as you know. I know a lot about her work and I know a lot about her personal history, where she came from and, you know, how she came to do what she did. One thing I can certainly say about somebody who I consider to be actually quite a great person for the work that she did, you know, is that it was done in the spirit of God consciousness insofar as that is what she believed. And it's very difficult for me to untie that because I have a Christian history. You know, I spent 10 years living in a Catholic monastery, praying the Catholic japa in Latin and reading out the Catholic scriptures, the Christian scriptures in Latin, singing them every day. It's a process known as Lectio Divina. And we were always encouraged to meditate on the great personalities who did wonderful things for what we said, the Lord, and for humanity. So whilst some of her work was very altruistic and philanthropic in many, many respects, it was actually dovetailed into the service of the Lord. Now, you may say, oh, but you're talking about Christianity and you're saying the service of the Lord. I'm going to come to this particular question of who should we refer to as the Lord later on in a room conversation with Srila Prabhupada and Alan Ginsberg. It's incredibly powerful. And every time I read it, it blows everybody's minds. So we're going to come to that a little later on when we come to that question. But and this is a purely personal opinion, I think that her work was carried out in the spirit of Ishavasya, albeit that she had a different name for God. Just bear one thing in mind that Srila Prabhupada did say to people, that we haven't come to convert you. If you have a name for God, then chant it with love. If you have a way to worship him, then do it better. And that was one of the most remarkable things about this man. He brought together people from so many different walks of life and gave them Krishna. My own history, born in a Vaishnava family, became a Catholic and then came back to a Vaishnava family, a big Vaishnava family now, because I have the opportunity to serve you all, and that's an incredible situation to be in for me. One which I grew up and I wake up every morning and I'm thankful for every day. So when I hear of great personalities, like Mother Teresa going out and helping lots of children in India, and let's face it, I'm Gujarati, by birth. So despite the very British accent, my skin is very Indian. And the material blood that runs underneath that still has an affinity very much to the homeland of my forefathers. And I wish I could have done something more for my people. So I would say that the work that she did was very much in the spirit of God consciousness. We may not have the same name for God, some of us, as she did, or other people do. But I think when great personalities like that do good work, and actually selflessly, she had nothing. She owned nothing in her name. Everything was given by other people to help her. And she was another person, she had incredible faith, for example. People would ask her, how are we going to feed these people? How are we going to build these schools? How are we going to build these hospitals? And her answer was always, pray. God will provide. That's real faith. One little old lady. Let's go to somebody else there. I can't say your name there, Prabhu. Gatirvel Murugesan. You're wearing a mask. I'm sorry if I don't get your names right. Oh, no, your hand's gone down. Okay. Then let's go to Shiv Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji, it's just a thought. It's my thought. Srila Prabhupada, in one of the conversations, in one of the lectures, he says it's a division of real duty. So he talks this altruism works or philanthropist works as a diversion of a real duty. He says anything should be in terms of Krishna conscious, and any duty or activity that you do will automatically fall into the place of Krishna consciousness. So if we take this example of Mother Teresa, which you're talking about, she went the other way around. She did the deeds in terms of opening missionaries, charities, or schools or education, and tried to work for the welfare of the society with a tinge of God consciousness. But if she would have thought about God consciousness and then she would have opened, don't you think that would have been the better way? I might be wrong, Prabhu. It's just a question.
It possibly could have been a better way. But I guess that, for each individual spirit soul, there is a path that Krishna puts in front of one, or many paths. And those paths are there for us alone to choose and to tread.
And she chose that one. Okay.
And she chose that one because maybe she wasn't quite at that, or she hadn't quite seen the other paths or realized. It's very difficult for me to say. We also have to be very careful, of course, not to judge. Krishna can judge. He can really judge. And Prabhupada was very clear on this, when, for example, disciples fell down, very senior disciples. There was an example of a sannyasi, a disciple who had given sannyas to, who then ran off with a woman. And he was disappeared for some time, and then he came back, and the devotees were very unfriendly towards him and unkind. And Srila Prabhupada said, well, hang on a minute. Who do you think you are? Let him back in. And they said, but Prabhupada, he's brought a woman with him. And he said, no problem. I will perform the marriage ceremony. Krishna can judge. Krishna presents us with the path, and then he can do what he likes with how we choose to walk that path, whether we choose to walk that path or not. But the path that has been laid out before each and every one of us has been laid out for you alone to choose, for you alone to tread. So I can't really comment on what way Mother Teresa could have gone or couldn't have gone. Your point is valid, but I think it's important that we, spiritual seekers, come to that level of understanding that Prabhupada wanted. Sincere compassion and understanding. I hope that.
Got it. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so then let's call it a day for today. It's 9:03 a.m. here in India. I've got some people coming for kirtan and prasadam, so I've got to start cooking now. It's been a wonderful morning. Thank you very much for joining me and being so cooperative and participating. I do enjoy it when everybody's getting involved. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all on Tuesday when we will cover mantras 4 and 5 and perhaps start mantra 6 if we can. So I bid you all a good day. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, everyone. Dandavat Pranam.